tentative return to cinemas, dancers step off the stage and into the schoolroom, and a GUSTAV KLIMT painting here in Paris makes its way home. That's all coming up in today's show. We're starting here in France, where the world of cinema has got its sights set on one key event, the Cannes Film Festival. Slated to run in July after the pandemic saw last year's edition cancelled, this year's jury president will be Spike Lee. The celebrated director is the first black person to head up the jury in the festival's history. Fraser Jackson has the story.
Spike Lee is set to make history at the 2021 Cannes Film Festival this July as he becomes the first black person to head its jury. It's actually the second time Mr. Lee has been asked to preside over the festival, after last year's event was cancelled due to the pandemic. On Twitter, the 63-year-old said he was very humbled by the honour.
Way back in 1986, my very first film, She's Gonna Have It, played there, and it was my introduction to the world of cinema. So Cannes will always, always, always have a deep, deep spot in my heart.
Spike Lee has actually premiered 7 of his films at Cannes over the years. With a catalogue of films including Malcolm X, Netflix's The Five Bloods and Do the Right Thing, his work shines a light on issues of race and politics in the United States. His 2018 film Black Klansman won him Cannes Grand Prix and his first ever Oscar. The official selection for this year's festival, along with the rest of the jury, are due to be named in early June. Although with COVID still circulating in France and a slow rollout of the country's vaccination campaign, it remains to be seen whether July's festival will go ahead as planned.
Well, staying with cinema, in Los Angeles, people have been able to return to movie theatres. The city's authorities have deemed it safe to open theatres at 25% capacity. The vaccination rollout in Southern California has meant that COVID-19 rates have fallen sharply in recent weeks, allowing restaurants and gyms to open with restricted visitor numbers too. Movie theatres have been particularly hard hit by the health crisis in the US, so this latest news went down well with film fans.
It's exhilarating to be back here at the movie theater. This is kind of my second home.
Oh, it's wonderful. We averaged about 125 movies a year, so we're anxiously awaiting.
It was a big part of my life, coming to the movies. It was like a kind of a ritual almost for me. It's something I really enjoyed, so I really missed it a lot.
I think as long as people sanitize their hands, stay a good distance, I think we'll be all right.
Meanwhile, here in France, a tantalising glimpse of a post-pandemic cultural scene, or for some, a nostalgic reminder of what going to the movies was like pre-COVID. A handful of cinemas across France opened their doors this week for a few exceptional film screenings. The French film sector is hoping the initiative will boost their arguments to open theatres to the public once again. Selina Sykes has more.
In towns across France, a lucky few get a taste of life before the pandemic, as people queue up in what appears to be a normal weekend visit to the cinema.
We jumped at the opportunity to come. It's such a pleasure to come back here.
These people are taking part in a test screening, which gauges audience reaction before a film's release. It's also a way to welcome back cinema goers while respecting coronavirus measures.
We looked at the decree from the 29th October 2020. The restrictions state that it is possible to organize professional activities to prepare for reopening.
Organisers hope the initiative will send a message to the government.
There's no rational reason today to keep cinemas closed.
Spectators too hope it might pave the way for cinemas reopening.
Things have to get back up and running. People take the metro to go to work. Why not go to the cinema?
I miss it so much. It's important, a bit of imagination. Films help us escape daily life and make us dream.
This cinema in Nantes has opted for a different tactic to get its voice heard.
Donc on va vous passer la bande sonore d'un film. Ça va être votre nouveau moyen d'apprécier le cinéma.
Around 250 people attended the outdoor event.
We need culture. Everyone here has a mask. Everyone is respecting social distancing. We're ready to pull out all the necessary stops.
Except for a brief reprieve last summer, cinemas have been closed for more than 200 days in France, a first in the country's history.
Well, when it comes to the performing arts, one dance troupe here in Paris has come up with an innovative solution. Since the audience can't come to them, they go to the audience. Dancers from the Theatre National de Chaillot have been giving special performances for high school students based on the traditional fables of La Fontaine. France 24's Marie Schuster and Peter O'Brien went to find out more.
Behind the uninspiring facade of this school near Paris, fables are being told. The fables of 17th century writer Jean de La Fontaine, to be precise, and they're being told through dance.
The dancing was great. With COVID, they're not used to performing like this. It must have been difficult with masks on.
Conditions are far from what the dancers of the prestigious Chaillot Theatre are used to.
Welcome to our dressing room. The tour begins in the disabled toilets, which is our improvised changing room, with costumes, water bottles, and other stuff. It's good to be able to work while we're still desperately waiting for theatres to open. We've adapted, and I think schools appreciate us coming. At least we've not forgotten the children.
The health crisis has forced the world of live performance to reinvent itself. Chaillot Theatre has ramped up efforts to bring its productions to the public and keep the show on the road.
It's been a lot of work changing the show. A lot of the choreography had to be redone, and we had to readapt to a much smaller space with no lights or decor, and simpler costumes and props.
The organisers also had to make sure health guidelines were followed from start to finish. Masks are mandatory in the audience and on stage.
It's absurd, because we can't put on shows in theaters even if they respect all the health guidance, and even if they're just performed to one class of students. Meanwhile, we can go into schools even if we struggle to follow the health rules to the letter there.
About 100 performances of La Fontaine's fables are scheduled to take place around France. They're meant to go on until the grand reopening of theatres, hopefully at some point soon.
Next, it is the only painting by GUSTAV KLIMT that hangs as part of France's national collection at the Musée d'Orsay. But the dreamlike landscape of rose bushes under the trees is now headed to its rightful owners. Nora Stiasny was forced to sell the painting in Austria under Nazi rule in 1938. She was one of the many Jews whose art was stolen or appropriated. Vedika Bal tells us more.
Returned to its rightful place. After 80 years apart, France's culture minister said Monday that a masterpiece by GUSTAV KLIMT, Rose Bushes Under the Trees, will be given back to the heirs of its original owners.
Cette décision est nécessaire, indispensable. Rosier sous les arbres est une peinture. Elle ne peut pas nous parler. Et pourtant, elle porte en elle, pour toujours, ses destins tragiques, ses vies brisées.
She's referring to the painting's brutal history. An art dealer and Nazi sympathiser bought the piece from Nora Stiasny, a member of a well-known Jewish family in Austria. After the Nazis annexed the country in 1938, she was forced to sell the piece at a bargain price. She was deported to Poland in 1942 and died the same year. The artwork was held onto by the dealer until his death and has remained in the Musée d'Orsay since France bought it in 1980. But France is keen to restore the property to its rightful owners and acknowledge the crimes suffered.
Des œuvres d'art et des livres spoliés sont toujours conservés dans les collections publiques, des objets qui ne devraient pas être là, qui n'auraient jamais dû être là.
An act of restitution that puts this masterpiece right back where it belongs.
And we're wrapping up the show with a snapshot of what young European photography looks like in 2021. The Circulations Festival aims to promote emerging talents and blur the boundaries between contemporary art and camera work. And with many of those images exhibited in public spaces, it's a great way to catch some art outdoors while museums remain closed. We'll leave you with a taste of that. Do remember to check out our website. We're also on social media too. There's more news coming up on France 24 just after this.
France 24, your economy explained. Liberté, égalité, actualité.